What's up, everybody? Paul Trammell here, coming at you from sailing vessel Windflower in Bocas del Toro, Panama. What follows is a podcast interview from my show, Offshore Sailing and Cruising with Paul Trammell, and the interview is with Mark Sinclair, also known as Captain Coconut. Mark Sinclair was born in Manchester, UK, immigrated to Australia in 1960, where he served for 20 years with the Royal Australian Navy. He served on a tanker and an icebreaker, a minesweeper, destroyers, and numerous hydrographic ships. He navigated 4 ships, he commanded 3. He has sailed extensively all his life, and in 2018, he sailed in the Golden Globe race, circumnavigating single handed in his boat Coconut, a Lello 34. He circumnavigated in 332 days with one stop in Adelaide, Australia. It was actually a 3-year stop in Adelaide, Australia. But he completed the course and was the only one to do it in the Chichester class, and therefore won the Chichester class. He also participated in the Golden Globe race in 2022, and he sailed in the 2023 Ocean Globe race, skippering Explorer. He holds a Yachtmaster Offshore and Yachtmaster Ocean certificate, and he has sailed over 90,000 nautical miles. He is certainly one of the most experienced sailors I've ever interviewed, and what follows is a fantastic conversation, very educational for anyone who is an offshore sailor or who aspires to be an offshore sailor. So let's get to it. This is my interview with Captain Mark Sinclair. Mark, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast.
Yeah, cheers, Paul. No worries.
I've been following the Golden Globe race and the second Golden Globe race and the Ocean Globe race, and I've seen your name and seen your interviews and read about you and wrote a book with Tapio about it. So it's funny. It's an honor to finally meet you.
Oh, cheers. Yeah, well, it's a bit of fun, and that's what we're here for.
Right on. Well, gosh, you were the only person to finish in the Chichester class in the 2018 Golden Globe race, and there was also only one to finish in that category in the 2022 race. So congratulations for having the wherewithal to want to continue. Um, how did that all come about? I know that you had to stop in Australia because of, I think it was water and gooseneck barnacles, and and you
Yeah.
finished the course. It was much later. There was a bit of a delay, but you finished the course. So what made you want to complete the course when no one else did?
Well, I guess as you rightly said, I was struggling in the 2018 race with gooseneck barnacles and lack of water. And water can be replenished, but I didn't really want to drag those gooseneck barnacles around the world. So I sort of thought, what do you do? Well, a sensible thing would be to go in and scrape them off. And so once you go alongside, you've broken the momentum of the race, and you've broken the race, and you're stopping, and whether you stop for one day or 1 year, you've stopped. So I sort of thought, well, I've stopped, and it was Christmas time. I was in my home port. Family was there. I had the opportunity of going back to work. So I thought, oh well, look, I've sailed for 154 days from France to Adelaide. That's my lot, and I'll go back and resume my life. Well, a few years go by, and the 2022 race comes up, and I think, you know what, I really want to do that, and I think I'll go back and do another Golden Globe race. But I've got to get my boat over there. Well, in times of COVID, basically shipping was hard and very expensive. So I sort of thought, well, I'll sail over, because that's what I was going to do anyway. I was going to sail from Australia, round the Horn and back up through the Atlantic. Well, I'll continue that, as if I was in the original race, which I did. And so I actually left on the 3rd anniversary to the day of getting in there. And I'd actually spoken to Don, and I said, hey, Don, the a Golden Globe race has no time limit, and Chichester allows one stop. So I've had one stop of 3 years, but what's to stop me resuming the race? And he looked at the race rules, and he said, well, you're absolutely correct. And if you can do it, we'll put on a party. So I cast off, and 174 days later, arrived in Les Sables d'Olonne, having rounded the Horn, and so completed a circumnavigation in a total of 332 days with a 1 year, a 3 year intermission. but Joshua
Wow.
Slocum took 4 years to sail around the world. So what's the problem with that?
I think it's an incredible achievement. I mean, just to sail from Les Sables d'Olonne to Adelaide is an incredible achievement, and then to do it in one shot from Australia back to France, regardless of any break, is an amazing achievement. Such an incredible long sail. It's gotta be just an unbelievable uh, experience that cannot be replicated any other way. Those long
Yeah, well,
stretches.
and particularly because you're sailing it under the Golden Globe race rules. So you're very much it's all about sextant, pencil, tables, no calculator, no modern communications equipment, no so you're basically doing it the way Sir Robin did it. That's the whole point. But you're really doing it the same way as Cook and Flinders and Drake and all those guys did in the past. So it's quite interesting to have a voyage under those conditions for an extended time, and you very much get into a zone. And I was measuring the interval of time by there's another full moon. Oh, gee, the last full moon I was back there, or whatever. So that you sort of become very much, I guess, aware of what's going on around you, and you become disconnected from all that noise of life of digital media and this and that and the other. Doesn't exist. There's only right now, and it's just a matter of what do I need. When times are tough, what do I need to do to get through today? It's yeah. There's only today, and there's only right now.
Yeah. And do you think, while you were sailing, were you thinking about how much longer you had, or was that just so far into the future that you couldn't really think about it?
To be honest, the time sort of catches up with you. You've been so having sailed from France to Adelaide. What I tended to find was I cast off, and almost within a day of being at sea, it was as if I hadn't even put into port. It was just a seamless transition, and and so then I sailed down to the Hobart Gate and went through there, and then I went south of New Zealand. So after a week you go past Hobart, and then after another week you go past Stewart Island, and then you got the journey across the Pacific, and like the days just roll on. And so it became, I've done 30 days at sea. Oh, I've done 2 months at sea. Oh, I've done 100 days at sea. It's I've gone around the Horn. Oh, how many days is it since I left Adelaide? Oh, it's 70 days or whatever. Go, oh, well, is that good or is that bad or whatever? It's just the thing. So time sort of becomes irrelevant, and it's more along the lines of, well, I've eaten half of the stores. I need to be halfway round. So it
Yeah.
becomes a freshwater and food management thing more than a time management thing, because
Mhm.
time just seems to be endless. And it's not as if after 2 months or 3 months you're 2 or 3 times as homesick. You're just in a zone doing what you're doing, sailing a boat around the world, and present in the here and now. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's sort of funny. Time's almost irrelevant. And if you didn't write it down in your log and actually count the days, you'd have no idea about how many days it was.
I've noticed that in just the short trips that I've done. I'm also a solo sailor, but um, my sails are just a few days. But even after just a couple of days, you wonder, is this day 3 or 4? I'm not really sure. It
That's right.
happens pretty
What
quickly, doesn't it?
What happened yesterday? Oh, okay. Scratch my head.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I picture sailing through the Southern Ocean on a 34-foot boat as being rough and cold and wet and probably a lot of misery. Were you comfortable on the boat? Were you enjoying it?
Yeah, look, to be honest, you get a mixed bag of weather wherever you are. And the journey across the Pacific, I think I was sailing at about 47 south. And you'd get, every 2 weeks you'd get a gale, and then you'd get other weather, and sometimes the high pressures would go down south of you, and you'd actually get headwinds or no wind and whatever. So you're getting a mixed bag. So it's not as if you're getting beaten up all the time and it's cold and miserable. Once you start to dive down to go round the Horn, that's really a bit of a marker. And then from then on, it is a little harder. Once you get south of 50, and the 2 weeks from once you head down on to the southeast to go around there, I tend. But then your adrenaline. You've got this thing. You've got the Horn ahead. So there's this interesting thing that you want to do. It's a milestone, and you want to do it, and you want to get it behind you. And the level of anxiety increases a little bit as you go further south. So in general, the trip across the Pacific was quite benign, and there were good days and bad days. But it was when you start to head to the southeast to get down to 57 south that it's game on. And then that's only like a 2 week period. So it's not as if you're spending 70 days in the Southern Ocean. That's tough. In fact, in the previous race, I tended to find the Indian Ocean was probably tougher, in that we were there in September, so it was still early spring, and there was a lot of bad weather and discomfort there. And a couple of boats were lost, of course. So I tend to find the Pacific was a lot more enjoyable, and it was a lot more further south. But the Cape Horn bit is an element that you've got to put your game face on there.
Mm-hmm. And where were you, and relative to the storm that took out Abalash and Connor's boat?
Yeah, Gregor. Yeah.
Gregor.
I was those guys
Gregor,
were
yeah.
ahead of me, but I was further north, and basically, I was sitting at in the high 30s, because we just come around the bottom of South Africa, and that's about 34 south. And as I said, it was sort of early autumn, so it wasn't long out of winter. So I basically was keeping quite far north, and to be honest with you, and that impacted my performance and the speed, because sometimes I didn't get the following breezes that the others did. So I think the others were a bit more, they were racing harder. They went further south, and so they were a little bit more exposed. And I was a bit further north, so I was behind them and further north. Which and basically we had some warnings of severe weather, and so if you get a really bad weather coming, Don will give you a warning, and he'll say, "Oh, look, you've got a storm coming in a few days' time, and I recommend you go, head north or do whatever." And basically, I think I can't remember what it was, but it might have been go above 38 south, and so I'd go above 38 south, but go another 60 miles to be on the safe side. These forecasts that are a week out. The best gale is a gale avoided. So now I think though that might be at the expense of my my speed and time, but I prefer to live to fight another day. So I was more conservative than the others, and I was at a lower latitude than they were.
Well, it sounds like that was the right call, because that was a hell of a storm.
Well, in that case, look, I think there's a bit of luck or unluck in this, but I think it also, if you look at the way I've sailed, I'm quite conservative, and so I tried to stay out of trouble. And once again, I was conservative going across the Pacific. However, I was a lot further south, 47 south. But then when I went round the Horn and head to the southeast, if there was a bad blow coming, I would do whatever I needed to do, get out of the way if I could. Now, you're in a slow boat, so that's not completely possible. But there are times when I would, you'd be getting a low passing close to the south of you, with 50, 60 plus knot breeze, and so I'd head south and position myself on the other side of the low, which meant I had headwinds, but the strength of the winds were less, so I got more 30 to 40 knots, not 50 to 70 knots. And so it's a matter of, that was annoying that you had headwinds, but certainly if you can take the ferocity out of the storm by positioning yourself, then that's a good thing too.
Yeah. Did you have any heavy weather on the way to La Sable d'Olonne in your second leg of the Chichester?
Yeah. So there was a procession of storms as I approached the Horn. So I got beaten up there a bit, and a gale would come through, and then 36 hours later you'd get another one, and so it was just relentless. So it was good to get out of there. But I also got some quite nasty weather in the North Atlantic, surprisingly. So yeah, look, you can get severe weather anywhere really, and also we don't have the forecasting capability that others do, because we're just on HF radio and with the barometer and what you can see. So and if something severe is coming, you generally get a warning from the race control. But yeah, no, a fair share of gales going around the Horn, and then also in the North Atlantic when I got up there.
I was watching when you finished. Don met you, I think, I don't know, in a rib, I think, at the finish
Yeah.
line, and made a video. I think he was broadcasting live on Facebook. But anyway, I was watching, and I vaguely remember what he said. It was something like, he said something like, "Oh, your boat looks great, except for the tow rail and the head stay and he just started rattling off a whole bunch of excepts because your boat looked like it'd been beaten up.
Yeah, well,
So you
that's it.
must have
I
gone
mean,
through some trouble.
yeah. So we got thrown down on our beam ends, and it just ripped the tow rail off, and so that was all splintered and bits and pieces. And I ended up demolishing the foil on the forestay, and losing destroying the working jib, which I then couldn't get down, and basically because I actually had the anchor warp up the top of the mast with a block and tackle sort of holding the mast up. So I couldn't really sail with a head sail. So I was just sailing. So I came back almost from the equator on a staysail and the main, because I was conscious of trying to keep the mast up, because I'd sort of lost my forestay and broken the foil and shredded the sail and couldn't get it down. So it was sort of wrapped
Wow.
in ribbons, and I'd been up there numerous times, but it was a matter of keeping the mast up. And you could fly in light weather. You could fly a Genoa loose luft, but once it gets above 8-10 knots, you've got to think I'm going to get this thing down, and I've got nothing to hank it onto, so it makes it difficult. So yeah,
Wow.
the equator back to France was difficult, because I basically didn't have a Genoa.
hmm Can you describe a particularly beautiful moment during that race?
There was one occasion where a killer whale came and had a look at the boat and did a circuit and sort of hung around for a while and was very 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 close, sort of just meters away, and then went away, and then about half an hour later, a family of killer whales crossed the stern. So I imagine he was the big daddy and doing a bit of a scouting party, and I looked okay and not a threat, and they went on about their business. So that was quite nice to
Wow.
experience that. But look, to be honest, it's the the sunrises and sunsets, the waxing and the waning of the moon, and the planets. I think from memory, I think the planets were all in a line when I was coming up through the South Atlantic, and there was whatever Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn all quite close together, which was quite amazing. In fact, I think that's happening again sort of right now. But it was certainly, oh, did I lose you there?
Okay, yeah, just for a second, but
Okay.
the this program records with the on your device and uploads with a delay, so it probably caught everything you said, even though I missed some of that.
Okay. Okay.
So you were talking about how the planets were aligned and were
Yeah.
possibly something
No,
to
that
see.
was that was really interesting because they're all there in the. I can't remember whether it was in the morning or the evenings, but I just remember them all. Basically in a line, above the horizon. You think, wow, that's pretty neat to get all those, the four brightest planets all together there.
Mhm.
It's just a nice little celestial thing going on.
Cool. Can you describe a difficult moment where you had some difficult problem solving to do, and can you tell us what it was and how you solved it?
Right. I guess coming out of Lemaire Strait was quite challenging, because basically I was trying to avoid a gale, and I didn't want to go on the south side of Isla de los Estados, and with a big low coming through. I sort of thought, because it's quite nasty off the eastern end with overfall. So I went through Lemaire Strait, and the gale hit me as I came into the South Atlantic, and I was sort of swept through, and I basically, got the headsail off it and reefed and reefed and reefed, and then got the staysail off it and reefed the main. I was down to 3 reefs in the main, but I was sort of carried through. There's some overfalls off Cape San Diego as you come through Lemaire Strait, and I was swept through basically into this gale, and it was sort of, and the big standing waves. It was like a washing machine, and basically the wind was screaming, and I had far too much sail up. But I sort of thought, look, if I try and leave the cockpit and go up forward to pull the main down and put up the storm trysail, I'm going to die doing it. This is just too hazardous. So I'm just going to have to leave it as it is and just keep sailing, because it was like a bit of a lee shore with the island down on my starboard quarter. So I just sort of eased the sail out a bit, and took the vang off because the boom was in the water most of the time, to take the pressure off the boom, and just rode it out. And at the end of it, I thought, well, this little boat's a lot tougher than I give it credit for. uh,
That is
and,
a
uh,
tough boat.
and can take, I'm quite conservative, and having had that experience, I thought, wow, yeah, that was quite neat. So it was a matter of just keeping on going, because I really didn't have a lot of choice. And I thought, look, it's going to be more hazardous to try and reduce sail than it is just to keep continuing, because of the boat was just being continually swept, and standing waves, and were being thrown around. It was, really quite severe. But the boat endured it well, and it was just a matter of plugging on, really.
Wow. Let's talk about your boat a little bit. It is a 1980 Lello 34, the only
Correct.
Lello in either of the of the two GGRs that have run so far. How did you choose her?
Well, when I first heard about the race, it had been known about in the Northern Hemisphere for a year, and but that news didn't filter down to me. I was completely unaware of it. And I heard about the race, and I thought, oh my God, I've just got to do that. And so I quickly contacted Don and got the notice of race, and I looked around for boats, and basically there weren't really any um, boats that were allowed under the race rules in Australia. They just weren't there. There might have been the odd trade wind, but there was nothing for sale that I could identify at the time. And so I thought, it's just not practical running a campaign, trying to get a boat in Europe and refit it when I'm living in Australia and working in Australia. And so I basically thought, well, I've investigated this, but it's just not practical. But then Don sent an update to the race rules, and I saw that the Lello had been included, and it was on the basis that a guy, Neary Corners, had put it up as a requesting it be considered, and it was allowed. Neary subsequently didn't attend the race, but anyway, that boat got endorsed as one of the GGR boats that could be used. And I go, hang on, I thought I saw one of those for sale. And there was one for sale in Port Adelaide, which is just down the road. So basically, I sort of rang it. I thought, oh, right. So I rang up the number, and I don't think it was answered. It was a long weekend, Queen's birthday weekend. And so I drove to Port Adelaide, and I looked in the window of the place for sale, and there was a little brochure there and whatever, and there was another phone number on it. So I rang up that phone number, and I said, "Oh, the Lello, is that for sale?" Yeah. You can have a look next week. I said, No, I want to have a look now. And so I ended up having a look right away, and basically put an offer on it, subject to blah. Right away, because so I got it basically because in my mind that was the only boat that I could get that was compliant and available, that I could refit in time. Now, subsequently, other people have got other boats and refitted them in Europe and blah 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 blah. But this was my experience back in 2016, when you were sort of doing it for the first time a bit. And so I was on a wait list. I was 9th on the wait list because he had 30 entrants. But I just persevered and worked on the boat and whatever, and eventually I got a spot in the race.
And you're one of the only people I know of. There's a couple. There's at least one more, but there's very few who have kept their boats after the race. So you must love that boat.
Yeah, well, it's the boat I've got, and you put a lot of effort into refitting it. I've got watertight doors and external chain plates, and I rebuilt the mast and blah blah blah. And it's funny, you spend your life sailing boats and always wanting a bigger boat. Well, I'm 66 years old now. There comes a time when you don't want a bigger boat anymore. You want a smaller boat. You want something that you can fix, that's manageable and whatever. And the beauty with Coconut is that it's only 10 meters long. Years ago, you go back 30, 40 years, this was a big boat. This would be a big family boat. But these days it's quite small and whatever compared to modern boats and whatever. But look, everything is very manageable. The boat will go anywhere. And then I tried to do the 2022 GGR and sailed over and ended up completing the 2018 GGR in Chichester class by virtue of that. And then I participated in that race and then retired because my son got married. And then I was in the OGR. But I mean, Coconut's really part of me, and I sort of I just enjoy her and the simplicity of her. And if I sold it, I'd probably get nothing for it, and then I'd have to go and get another boat. And what would I get? So yeah, no, she suits me, and yeah, I'll just. And now we're going to follow the MGR for you know, a bit of interest. So yeah, I'm a bit reluctant to sell her. You know, wouldn't mind it if she went in the next GGR, but we'll see.
Oh, are you thinking about doing the next one, the
No, not
2026?
me. Not me.
Oh,
I'm saying the
send
boat.
somebody else out in her.
But we'll see what happens. But no, I think for me, it's not just the time to running a campaign from Australia is more difficult than it is from doing it from the Northern Hemisphere. And also, it's not just the time in the race, the preparation, blah blah blah. It's 2 years out of your life. Now it's interesting and wonderful and whatever, but I've had 2 cracks at that, and you know, there are other interesting things I need to do. So it's not that it's not enjoyable, but there's I've only got so many increments of 2 years left. I need to do new and interesting things.
Well, it sounds like you're up to something interesting right now. Tell us about the mini globe race and how you're involved in it.
Yeah, well, so Don created the Golden Globe race, which is a celebration of the original Golden Globe race in 1968, and it was done on the 50th anniversary. And then he created the Ocean Globe race, which is a celebration of the Whitbread round the world race in 1973. Once again, 2023, done on the 50th anniversary. And then, and Don's thing is to make um, round the world sailing affordable. So it's all about, you know, you can have your Vendée boats and your all those and the Volvo ocean races, and all those things are very interesting, but they sort of are not that accessible to the average person. So he's created races where the average guy in the average yacht club can race around the world. And the Mini Globe race is an extension of that. It's celebration of John Guswell, and he had I think it was a 24-footer called Trekker, and he sailed around the world over a couple of years and whatever, and had an amazing adventure. And so Don has created a race in his spirit, and with a few differences. So he's created a class. You buy the plans and you build the boat. So they're plywood boats, 19'6". So you build your boat and race it around the world, and it's not via, you know, Cape Horn and whatever, like the Golden and Globe race and the Ocean Globe race. It's through the Panama, across the Pacific, above Australia, and across the Indian Ocean. So it's a different type of race, and so, you know, hundreds of people have bought these plans and embarked on these builds. And there was a pre-qual race across the Atlantic in, I think, 2021, and there was another one in 2023. And so this one is the third race across the Atlantic, and that was really done to prove the class and to provide, if you like, a prequel for the Mini Globe race, which is a circumnavigation. So there are people who've done. So I think Ertan did the 2023 race. There's a number of people racing across right now. The first boat's getting in on Sunday across the Atlantic, and there are a couple of boats sailing down from America doing their prequels that way, and there's a boat being delivered from Australia, and that Gary's got to actually do his prequel around here. So basically, on the 23rd of February, these boats are setting off for Panama and racing around the world. So home built, 19'6" plywood boats. And they can use modern media these days, and they can use Starlink and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, it's a dinghy race around the world in 5.8 metre plywood boats. I found that quite interesting, particularly having done the GGR and the OGR, I sort of thought, gee, the MGR would be an interesting trifecta. But I don't want to sell coconut, and I didn't want to necessarily get into the MGR race. But I thought, well, what about if we followed the race in coconut and did the circumnavigation basically as an unofficial safety boat type thing, and just followed the fleet and go to the events. Don puts on amazing adventures and amazing races, and this will be one too. And I sort of thought, well, we can participate in another way by sailing alongside them. So that's what we've decided to do. So heading off on the 23rd of February. First stop's Panama, and then through the Panama Canal, for me anyway. I think they're going across on trucks, and then Marquesas or Tuamotus, Tahiti, Tonga, Fiji, Darwin, Cocos, Mauritius, Durban, Cape Town, St. Helena, Recife, and back to Antigua. Wow, that's a great thing. And the other thing about it is, we were sailing the boat home, but the issue is that you can always choose not to do it. You can always not do it. Lots of people are going to sail around the world and don't actually do it. But the benefit of this, it starts on a date. It's an event. It starts on a date. It's programmed. And so it's a bit of a call to action. So I think I quite enjoy it because it gives you, I guess, a reason to depart on the 23rd of February and sail around the world. And, it's an event, and we're gonna be a spectator with a bird's eye view.
Wow, that sounds like so much fun. So you're coming to Panama. What port? I'm in Panama right now. What port are you guys going to?
I think we're going to. I don't know where the boats go and where they get shipped up. Presumably Shelter Bay Marina. I'm going to come into Shelter Bay Marina, and then go through all the planning of going through the canal. And unfortunately, I'm arriving in March, which is a busy month, so I might get delayed behind the other boats. But then I'll go through the canal and then head on off and endeavour to catch them up.
And how fast do the mini globe boats sail? What's like an average speed for them?
Well, at the moment, the leaders are doing 5 to 6 knots the whole time. I think the biggest days run 139 miles, which is probably 5.6 knots or something like that. So they're sailing them like dinghies, surfing down waves, this and that and the other. But the average speed over a 24-hour period, is probably just shy of 6 knots. So they're sailing them amazingly fast for little hard chine plywood boats. And unlike dinghies, these things are structurally sound and have all the safety equipment and blah 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 blah. So they've got to be able to go around the world. So there's weight and whatever that's going to go into that. So I wouldn't call them high performance. And the whole point is making it, I guess, accessible to the average mariner. So it's got to be something you can build in, that the average person can build in their back shed from plans. So it's not carbon fiber and all this flashy stuff. It's a relatively simple construction. People tend to take 2 to 3 years to build them, so it's a big commitment. And then race them around the world. Interesting.
Cool. So they sail at similar speeds to your boat, and you should be able to. Sounds like you should be able to keep up with them. Or
yeah, look, I think they can. I think the issue is that coconut can sail at that sort of speed quite easily. If you've got the trade winds blowing at 20 knots and but these guys are running kites and this and that and the other. I'll probably just have the Genoa out to weather on the pole and the main. And we should be able to do 140 miles a day quite easily. I sort of think that if there are headwinds and short seas and if things get a bit more difficult, then coconut's probably a bit more resilient. and obviously, but yeah, I think similar type speeds. Hopefully, but these are also very serious dinghy sailors pushing their boats hard, with kites up all the time, and I'm me. So in a way, there's the capacity of the boat, but there's also the willingness of the skipper to push hard. And I'm pretty conservative, so
Yeah.
we'll endeavour. I guess the other thing is I don't really want to be out the front. If anyone needs help, they're going to probably be down the back end. So I probably need to be, somewhere down the back end of the fleet to just to witness what's going on, lend a hand if required.
That's what I was wondering, if you were going to try to stay behind everybody.
Yeah, look, not specifically. I think it's loose association, but look at I think we don't know what we don't know, and these boats haven't gone into something of this duration and whatever. And I guess from my observation is the risk of something small becoming something big, and if people then need to get rescued by more substantial merchant vessels and whatever, you tend to have to abandon your boat, and it might be from a simple problem of loss of electrical power, or a leg taking longer and running out of water, or they might be able to give them some water. But I sort of think that having a boat sort of in loose association on the ground might be that if someone gets into strife, we can keep them going, rather than going into a full emergency type rescue. But these are all unknowns, so we don't know. I'm just there, and we'll see what happens.
Well, that sounds like a good time. It sounds like a great adventure, and enjoy. It sounds like it'll be fun.
Well, very, very interesting ports of call, and plenty of them. So, and in a way, we probably want to spend longer, but it's a good reconnaissance for us on the boat to look at. I've worked in some of these places, but I haven't sailed there. So I haven't sailed to Tahiti. I haven't sailed to Fiji. I haven't sailed to Tonga. So by doing this, I can then at the end of it, we go, okay, well, what do I want to do now? Do I want to come back to the Caribbean, or do I want to hang out in Tonga and Fiji and the South Pacific or whatever? So it will be, I'm sure, at the end, or do I want to return to Europe or do the east coast of the US? I'm sure at the end of this 12, 13 month period, I'll know what the next step needs to be.
All right. Cool. So you also did the Ocean Globe race, skippered. I'm sorry. Yeah, you skippered Explorer, 1977
Correct.
Swan 57, with the crew, recreating the Whitbread race. How did you enjoy that?
Yeah, no, it was a completely different dynamic, having a crew of 10 or up to 11, and racing around the world with stops. So, we got to see Cape Town, which was interesting, and Auckland, which was a really great stop, Punta del Este. So, I mean, racing around the world non-stop is really a crazy thing to do. And I guess the reason, why did I do it? Well, it's all about the history of the Golden Globe race, and Suhaili and all, and navigating with a sextant, and it's an event, and it was just a compelling thing to do. But it's much more fun to stop, and it's much more fun to do things and whatever. So the Ocean Globe race was definitely had those stops. So it was very interesting to race against some of the old Whitbread boats, and also relive that history. So just like the Golden Globe race history, the Whitbread has quite interesting history from all those races, and so you're living a different type of race, and but still with sextant. So there was a similarity between the races. I was lucky enough to be asked by Don to skipper Explorer, and it was a great opportunity, and we had a crew of 10, and they all had to learn to do astronav. So I had a captive audience. So everyone was doing sun sights, so that was a good thing to do.
Wow. Ca can you give us a highlight moment from that race? Anything stand out as particularly nice
Yeah.
highlight?
Uh, Look, obviously, rounding the horn was interesting. We lost our steering on the night before we got to the horn, and it was blowing, quite strong, and the seas were quite nasty, and so rather than have people in the in the stern with the quadrant banging around, and I thought it was quite dangerous. So we basically shipped the emergency tiller and put up we had the storm trysail, and we just banged it up into the wind and hove to. And she sat there beautifully. And then the next day we went down and reconnected the steering cables and fixed the problem when it was daylight, and there was no risk of injury and whatever. But it was quite interesting to have a steering gear failure just short of the horn, and then fixing that, and then going around the next day, and then going through Lemaire Strait as well. A lot. I'll tell you, a 57-footer is a lot easier than doing it in a 34-footer, and so there was a lot less anxiety.
Yeah, I bet. Wow. So your highlight was a mechanical failure, huh? Or was it
Oh,
the
I guess
fixing
I
of it
guess
that was really the highlight?
that was just an event that happened and that we responded to. But look, there were other, I mean, I'm not a particularly good cook, and so I sort of thought, well, I want to learn how to bake bread, and so I became the baker on board, and my bread was very popular, and I became quite good at it.
All right.
So we used to take it in turns to cook, but I used to do Sunday brunch, and also the baking. So that was a bit of fun. Enjoyed doing that. Learned a new skill, and
All
um,
right.
people are always very happy if you bake fresh bread.
That
And
is always a nice event to have fresh bread. I bake it. My mother was always made fresh bread, and, I've got some of her sourdough starter that's passed down through generations, so I occasionally bake bread, and it's an event. It is an
yeah,
event.
yeah, it is. And so we had an oven that was enough to put in three little bread tins in there, and so you bake three loaves, and getting the dough to rise, and then shoving it in there, and nothing like fresh bread with a bit of melted butter. Very nice.
Oh gosh. Wow, making me hungry.
Yeah.
Well, I wanna talk a little bit about the way you've got, coconut set up. There's definitely some unique features. One thing that struck me that I think is a great idea is the stainless steel rail that you have all the way around instead of lifelines. Looks like you have a
Yeah,
stainless steel railing all the way around the boat. How do you like that?
yeah. Well, I put one on my previous boat. So I used to have an SNS 41, and I had an accident on my bike, my push bike, and I got hit by a car, and it basically smashed up my left leg, and so I was quite a long time recuperating, and so I put a rail on that to just really for safety. And when I found out about the Golden Globe race, I sold Star Wave and I bought Coconut. The first thing I did was to put a similar railing on. So it's a solid rail, goes the whole way around the boat, and it's all about preventing falling overboard. And the best thing is to hold on. So plenty of grab rails and a nice solid rail, as opposed to lifelines, which can be set pretty low and don't necessarily provide much support when you're offshore and you're by yourself alone, and the bows pitching into the seas and whatever. So yeah, no, I find, or you're walking up the leeward side and the gunnel's under, I tend to find that solid rail around the boat. I think it's at 80 centimeters high, so it's quite high. obviously there's a weight thing, and racing people might not like it, but for me, it's just fundamental safety. And it sort of wraps around the stern, and I've got a little gate either side that I can remove the wires there and access should we need to. And but other than that, it's continuous.
Great. And do you have all of your lines coming back to the cockpit? All your reefing lines and your halyards?
Yep. So I've got 7 jammers on each side. So I've got basically 2 spinnaker halyards that come back, one on either side. I've got 2 headsail halyards that come back. I've got I think there's 1 staysail halyard, but then 2 pole halyards that come back, spinnaker pole halyards. And then I've got 2 main halyards. And then I've got 3 lines. I've got the outhaul on the main, and I've got 3 lines that do 1, 2, and 3 reefs on the main. And so there's a line that goes up the luff, and then comes back down and comes back to the companionway. And then there's one that goes up into the boom, goes out to the end of the boom, up through the leach, and then back down onto the boom. So so I can put 3 reefs in the main without leaving the cockpit, and furl both headsails and whatever, and basically do everything from here. I've got 2 running backstays, which I can set from here. They're brought forward with a running line that comes back, so I can even run a running backstay or release a running backstay from here. So everything can be done from down aft. And when you're by yourself, particularly at night, particularly in rough weather, the hazard is being on the upper deck and being on the upper deck forward. And the fact that I can sit in my companionway combing and do everything from here, including change the angle on the self steerer and change the course. I can do everything basically, other than setting a kite, from sitting here in the companionway. Fantastic.
Right. So you sit in the companionway underneath a hard dodger with a bunch of windows in front of you, and access to all of your lines, access to your tiller, access to your Aries wind vane control lines.
Yep. Access to the winches. So the winches out to starboard here and winches out the port, and I can lean over, so I can get on my knees, lean over, and winch in the headsail, winch in the staysail, furl them. So I've got the furling lines come back either side as well, and I've also got a boom brake, and that once again goes through a which one is it? It's a Fleming boom brake. So 3 turns around the boom brake, goes down to the chain plates, comes back in a blocks, comes back through a jammer, and then through a return block, and then comes, so I can winch it, and then throw on the jammer, and stop me jibing. So I can reef the headsails, control the runners, control the boom brake, everything from this position. So lots of lines, but what it means is I don't at night in rough weather I don't have to go forward.
Yeah, I agree. I've got all my lines coming back to the cockpit too, and sometimes it causes a little bit of trouble when things get hockles in them, around and can't go through a block or something. But I don't like to go forward on the deck either, especially at night in rough weather.
Yeah.
I like to stay in the cockpit. I feel safe in the cockpit.
That's right. So
every time I go forward, I feel like I'm risking my life.
Yeah. So you remove that risk, and particularly with boom brakes and things like that, people getting hit by the boom, it's a big risk. It's been a few issues recently, and it keeps you nice and safe, and the boat can get knocked down at the most unexpected time, and you do the best you can with handholds and this and that, the other, but it's all about risk reduction. The less times you're on the foredeck in heavy weather, well, the less chance you have of getting injured. And
Yeah.
so I think it's really, really wise to with the, if you like, the having all the lines back, and then when I do have to go up, I've got the big solid rail, and I've got some webbing that goes forward up each side, and I can wear a harness on a short tether, and if I need to go up in heavy weather, I can clip onto that too. So
Hmm.
it's all about managing that risk and making sure you don't go over the side or injure yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And I think you have a life raft on the deck. And I'm curious, what do you keep in your grab bag?
Well, there's a raft of stuff mandated by the Golden Globe race, and so we having done two of those races, we've got a lot of that safety equipment. So there's all the normals. So there's a certain amount of fresh water. There's some small medical kit. There's a VHF. There's actually an aeronautical VHF as well, but you probably don't need that as so much. There's fishing line. There's signalling mirror. There's an extra drogue for the life raft. There's that food, the high calorific food, blah blah blah. So if you look at the notice of race to the Golden Globe race, you'll see all the stuff that needs to be in grab bags. There's a whole raft of it. One of the YB3s is supposed to be in there. I've actually got them both accessible down below here. But so I've got 3 grab bags, full, Siloom sticks and water dye and flares, captive notebook, waterproof pencil, you name it, it's in there. So I've got 3 of those bags, all with lanyards and clips, and they are all just beside the companionway, so I'm able to don't lash them away somewhere, because if you need them in a hurry, and you'll need them when you least expect it. So that the day a ship runs you down at very little notice, you're able to grab these things quickly. Torches and loads and loads of stuff, all as dictated by the GGR rules, and basically we've got all that stuff there. So what?
Wow.
Yeah, so it's quite extensive, and people can make their own minds up, but it'd be a good check-off list. So if people want to look at the GGR website and look at the notice of race and look at what needs to be in the grab bags, they can always use that as a list, and they make their own decision about what they want to have or not.
Hmm.
But it's all there's plenty of stuff, more stuff than you probably need.
Yeah. But when you need it, you're glad you have it all. And a lot of the GGR racers needed their stuff.
Well, there were a couple of
Quite
boats
a few of
lost.
them.
So you look at
Yeah.
in the last race, Tapio and Ian Herbert Jones, and then in the previous race there was Abalash Gregor, Loic Lepage, Susie Goodall, and then on the last race also there was Guy Debord went aground. So misfortune can get anyone at any time, and I guess the issue is preparedness, and things like that mean that should you need to get into your life raft, you've actually got some things to get you by.
Hmm.
Spare sat phone was another thing to be in there. But the YB3 is also, it's a tracking and texting device with an emergency button on it. So they're pretty robust instruments. So there's plenty of gear and redundant gear to keep you going.
Yeah. Great advice. Look at the GGR website, go to the notice of race, look at what is required for safety gear. There is quite a bit of it. I've looked at that list. Good to see
Yeah.
that you're getting further use out of all that. That's quite an investment in safety gear.
It is an investment, and to be honest, the aeronautical VHF, I think I might have removed that, but nearly all the other stuff I've still got it there because it just makes sense. And the other thing is to open your grab bags from time to time, probably every 4 or 6 weeks or something, and just go through it all and familiarize yourself. And there's there's a what is there? There's a SART, and there was there's a couple of transponder things. But anyway, the good, you don't need it until you need it, and then you're very pleased to have it.
Yeah. Yep. Well, do you have any bucket list destinations? Any place you haven't been yet that you really want to go?
Well, the places that I have been that I really enjoyed, funnily enough, what I tend to find is I have a read on Navily, and if people say they don't enjoy it, I really enjoy it. And if people say it's really good, I go, I didn't like it. The one exception is if they say there are too many jet skis and boats passing fast at speed, close at speed. Yeah, don't go there. That's pain in the ass. So I agree with them
Yeah.
there. But quite often I find the little places that are authentic are really great, and I really enjoyed Beckway was really good. I really enjoyed Marie Gallant. We enjoyed Soufriere in the bottom of St. Lucia, and we enjoyed where am I thinking now of? Les Saints was really good on in Guadeloupe, and Deshays at the top of Guadeloupe, fantastic. I'm sort of looking forward to Tonga. I think that's going to be really interesting. The whales there and the nature there. Fiji's got a lot of sailing to be done, so I'm looking forward to that. Frankly, though, I enjoy sailing anywhere, and I enjoy going to new places. I'm looking forward to the Panama. Should be an interesting thing, and haven't done that, so that should be interesting. But and then Tahiti, but I think Cocos Keeling Island will be quite interesting too. That's sort of a remote little atoll in the Indian Ocean, and Mauritius as well. So look, we enjoy it all. So, but I guess Tonga would be the one that I'm particularly looking forward to.
Very cool. Well, it has been a pleasure talking to you, Mark. Is there anything else that we've missed that we should talk about before we go?
No, look, I think the people should be encouraged to look at the mini globe race, which is really interesting, and it's about to happen, and so that'll be a bit of fun. See how those guys sailing their little dinghies go, and I guess the other thing is that Don McIntyre has done a great job in democratizing sailing and making round the world racing available to the average guy, whereas it hasn't been so, and he's made it so. So I guess Sir Robin with the Clipper is a similar type of thing, but certainly on the single-handed round the world racing, and also reviving the Whitbread with the Ocean Globe race. They're fantastic things. So what it means is that sailing, these things have never been as accessible as they are now, and people should be aware of that. And I'd encourage people to step outside their comfort zone and do interesting stuff. I mean, prior to 2018, I'd only done some, I'd sailed to New Zealand and back, but only done a bit of coastal sailing and whatever. And now, so just a few years later, participated in 2 single-handed non-stop round the world races with various degrees of success and the Ocean Globe race, and now following the Mini Globe race. Gee, it's just fun. Just get out there and do it.
Get out there and do it. That's a great final statement right there. I agree. Everybody should step outside their comfort zone once in a while. And if you've got a dream, you should get out there and do it.
The other thing that I sort of like to reflect on is that, in rough terms, it's not exactly right, but in rough terms, you spend 20 years, growing up and doing schooling, and I spent 20 years in the military, and I spent 25 years in corporate life as a hydrographic surveyor, and in 20 years I'm going to be dead. That's a fact. So the bottom line is there's no time to waste. And people go, oh, is this risky or that risky or whatever the risky? The risk is I'm going to be dead in 20 years anyway. I'm not saying take unnecessary risks. I'm saying you've got to live life because it's only so long. It doesn't go on forever. And we all think we're indestructible, but in 20 years' time, I'm going to be dead. That's a fact. So, there's no time to waste. Seize the day.
There's no time to waste. Right. Sailing risks can be managed by setting up your boat right and having a proper grab bag and having lifelines and jack lines and tethers and
managing the risk of your death in your 80s. That's going to happen. So manage the risk of your life.
Manage the risk in your life while you still can. Yeah. Take risks.
All right. A great pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, you too, Mark. It's been wonderful. Let's do this again. I would like to do an update when you're part way around the world with the Mini Globe race.
Yeah. Well, we should have some interesting observations by then.
Yeah. All right. I'll let you go. Thanks again, Mark.
All right. Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye.